Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the debrief for the 2019 Chinese Grand Prix. Now, let's be honest, that was not a great race. I mean, it did give us a couple of interesting talking points, don't get me wrong, but combine the lack of action with the poor TV coverage, essentially missing the little action we did get, and it was a very disappointing Grand Prix. But before I go on too much about the race, let's start by having a quick look at the final result. Lewis Hamilton made it back-to-back victories as he finished ahead of teammate Valtteri Bottas by 6.5 seconds, with Sebastian Vettel rounding out the podium for Ferrari. Max Verstappen managed to come home in 4th place ahead of Charles Leclerc, with his teammate Pierre Gasly behind in 6th, and the Frenchman was the last driver on the lead lap of the race and set the fastest lap to take that bonus point. Daniel Ricciardo crossed the line in 7th for Renault ahead of Sergio Perez and Kimi Raikkonen, and Alexander Albon, despite starting from the pit lane, managed to finish 10th to take that final point. Romain Grosjean just missed out on a top 10 finish in 11th with Lance Stroll in 12th and the second Haas of Kevin Magnussen down in 13th place. A disappointing day for McLaren. Of course, I'll talk about them a little bit later in the video, but Carlos Sainz only managed to come home in 14th ahead of Giovinazzi in the Alfa Romeo in 15th. And then it's your two Williams boys of George Russell and Robert Kubica 16th and 17th respectively. And your retirements list for China were Lando Norris, Daniil Kvyat and Nico Hülkenberg. As is often the case with these debriefs, I'll start with the winners then, and it was just about sheer dominance from Mercedes. Really no other way to put it. They locked out the front row on Saturday and then disappeared up the road to become the first team since Williams in 1992 to finish 1-2 in each of the opening 3 rounds. That's quite a stat. It was an excellent drive from Lewis Hamilton to take his second consecutive win. He managed to jump his teammate off the line and never really looked back, to be fair. The whole race was just about what we've come to expect from Mercedes over the last few years. Basically, they got out front, controlled the race pace and cruised to victory. And yes, okay, I know it's early days, but it's all looking very ominous for their rivals at the moment. Onto some reaction from the drivers though, and Hamilton, who had struggled earlier on in the weekend with his car, was full of praise for the team and has urged them to keep it up for the rest of this season. It's not been the most straightforward of weekends, but what a fantastic result for the team. Everyone's worked so hard for this. Coming here, we didn't know exactly where we would stand with Ferrari as they've been so quick in Bahrain. Valtteri has been quick all weekend and did a great job today. To have a 1-2 together is really special for the 1000th Grand Prix. The start was where I made the difference, and after that, it's history. The strategy has really been on point over the first 3 races, so we need to keep that up. On the race start, by the way, Bottas has since blamed the start-finish line for his poor getaway, stating it gave him some wheel spin, which ultimately left him losing out to Hamilton. I think I lost it in the start, honestly. Otherwise, the car was feeling okay and the pace was similar, but in the first stint in the dirty air, I couldn't follow. It was a shame about the start. I got some wheel spin as I went over the white line, the start-finish line, which is immediately after my box, so I lost it there. The Finn also went on to say that he was proud of the team following their perfect start to the 2019 season. Are we looking at another year of Mercedes dominance? To be honest, 3 races down, 18 to go. Perhaps it's a little bit too early for people to be worrying too much about that. But as I've already said in this video, it does look rather ominous. In contrast, I guess, to the calm and control at Mercedes, Ferrari had another trying Sunday with team orders once again causing some controversy. Early on in the race, Sebastian Vettel appeared to be quicker than teammate Charles Leclerc, and so, as you'd expect from any team really, Leclerc was asked to either speed up or let Vettel through. In the end though, the team decided to switch them around despite Leclerc's claims that he was quicker. As it turned out, Vettel did not pull away after his teammate let him through, and speaking after the race, the German defended the team's decision and believes that their call was fair, but also admitted that they were unable to match Mercedes for pace. I felt I could go faster than Charles. It was difficult for me to find a rhythm, so I locked up and lost the advantage again. And I think it's fair if you see the whole race. We just weren't able to catch Mercedes. I was hoping for Charles to pit Max at the end, but he was too far back. I'm happy to be on the podium, but it was tough to stick with Mercedes from the start. The race with Max was good fun, but the objective was trying to chase Lewis and Valtteri down. They were too quick for us today. As for Leclerc, he was understandably not overly pleased with the team's decision, but has since said that he accepts the explanation given to him by Ferrari. Obviously, we had the meeting. It was not an easy situation. I was obviously struggling with the tyres, we both were, and at the time, it just felt like Seb was quicker. But being behind me for some laps, he also damaged his tyres, and when he went in front, his tyres were probably also damaged. Being in the car, it was a bit frustrating, but on the other hand, I'm well aware that being in the car, you don't see much of the full picture of the race. So I just accepted it, did it, and just focused on my race. Most of you already know my stance on team orders in F1. They're a part of the sport, and this sort of thing has been going on pretty much forever. Even when they were banned, teams still found a way around it. It is frustrating though that it has happened in some form at each of the opening 3 races, so I guess that does make it a little bit harder to swallow for fans. But I think most people would accept team orders later on in the year when one driver has a better shot at the title than their teammate, but you'd think that the priority would be for the team to get as many points on the board as possible during the early stages of the season. The thing is though, as we discussed yesterday in the race reaction stream, we're looking at this with the benefit of hindsight. At the time, and I said it during the race watch along, I felt like it was the right call, because at that point, Vettel did look to be quicker than Leclerc. However, again using that wonderful thing that is hindsight, it was the wrong call because Seb didn't really ever pull away, and that's even before he locked up. And in the end, it massively compromised Charles' race, allowing Max Verstappen to undercut him. And quite frankly, the less said about Leclerc's strategy, the better. It was very reminiscent of what they did with Kimi Raikkonen last season, actually. Okay, they were hoping for a safety car, and that probably was their best shot at taking the fight to Mercedes, so I guess I can understand it from that point of view. But if you want me to be completely honest about this, I can't help but feel that it all looked a little bit, dare I say, amateurish and a little bit scruffy. Going forward this season, Ferrari have not only got to sort out their car because it's not where they need it to be, but they also have got to start sorting out these strategy calls. We're 3 races in and it's costing them already. Moving on, and although there was a good scrap between Verstappen and Vettel at one point in the race, which I will talk about shortly, the other real talking point of the race actually came on lap 1 as Daniil Kvyat, Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris were all involved in contact at turn 6. The replay showed the Russian on the inside of the 2 McLarens before appearing to have to correct his car on corner exit, which in turn resulted in him making contact with Sainz and then hitting Norris. The stewards gave Kvyat a drive-through penalty which he disagreed with, and to be fair, I'm on his side with that one. And funnily enough, by the way, so is Lando Norris, not so much Carlos Sainz. I've watched the replay 5 or 6 times this morning and I still believe that was a first lap racing incident. He isn't turning into Sainz or Norris as some are claiming. He is clearly correcting his car, which is why his wheel is turned briefly to the left before that contact with Sainz. And as for the second contact, he's having to correct the car again because of the first contact. The fact it was a drive-through though is what really gets me. It's just yet another demonstration of a lack of steward consistency, surprise, surprise. There have been bigger first lap incidents in the past that have been ignored and put down as racing incidents, and even contact later in the race has seen drivers only, in air quotes, slapped with a 5 or 10 second time penalty. And this is the thing, according to Mercedes, the pit lane lost time without a stop is 17.8 seconds. So whether you believe he was in the wrong or to blame if you like or not, surely most of us can agree that it is a very harsh penalty. Kvyat did go on to retire from the race, as did Lando Norris, to be fair, having never really recovered from all of that. And by the way, I will talk about his teammate a little bit later in the video, but for now, let's have a run through the rest of the grid, starting with Red Bull. A solid result for Max Verstappen and a very good drive. He managed to split the Ferraris thanks to a well-executed undercut and did also give us some excitement as he attempted a move on Vettel for 3rd place. The Dutchman went for it, I think it's fair to say, into turn 14, going late on the brakes and I guess dive-bombing the Ferrari. Unfortunately though, he locked up, ran wide and Vettel was able to cut back underneath the Red Bull and hold on to that position. He did put a bit of a squeeze on Verstappen on the exit, but both drivers have since come out and said that it was an aggressive but fair move from Seb, with Max stating that he would have done the same in that situation. Pierre Gasly managed to set the fastest lap of the race late on, as I said earlier, to snatch that bonus point. But despite a much better weekend overall, he was still a long way off his teammate come the flag, and that would still have been the case even without that late pit stop. Don't get me wrong, I feel like he's definitely made progress in China, but he is still a way off where he needs to be, and he's got to step it up another notch in Baku. His future is already starting to get called into question by some, and that's despite the fact we are only 3 races into his first season with Red Bull. It seemed like a quiet day for Daniel Ricciardo as he came home to take his first points for Renault, and really I feel like he needed a nice quiet day following that frustration in the opening 2 races. The Aussie said post-race that although it seemed like a lonely race, he was still being pushed hard by all of those behind him, and added that although 7th was the best the team could manage in China, they want to, quote, push on from this over the next couple of races and keep working from here. As for Nico Hülkenberg though, well, more reliability problems for him. He came into the pits and was wheeled into the garage to retire on lap 16, his second DNF in as many races. The team said that, although there is still some more investigation needed, initial signs seems to show that it was an MGUK issue which was caused by a software glitch. Once again, as we saw in Bahrain, the pace was there for Renault in the race, but their reliability let them down. How costly could that be come the end of the season? Down at Racing Point, and what a fantastic drive from Sergio Perez. He started in 12th place but had one hell of an opening lap, passing Kvyat on the run to the first corner, going around the outside of both of the Haas drivers through turns 1 and 2 before heading around the outside of Nico Hülkenberg in turn 6, and then even tried to go around the outside again of Daniel Ricciardo through turn 7. That one didn't quite happen though. Absolutely brilliant from Checo, especially if you watch the onboard replay. Some well-deserved points in the bag. Lance Stroll, on the other hand, was left frustrated with the team's strategy and believes they should have been more proactive to prevent Alex Albon pulling off the undercut. He did add, though, that the car's race pace felt good, and with a better strategy, he could have been able to take that final point. I do just want to say something quickly on Lance, though. He needs to sort out his Saturdays, he really does. Once again, he's shown good pace on a Sunday, but his one-lap pace just isn't there, so if he can get qualifying right, he could, and I'll emphasise the word could, be consistently challenging for points this season. Once again, another cracking race from Kimi Raikkonen, and he seemed to be involved in a fair bit of action on track, pulling off some overtakes and defending well. It wasn't all plain sailing for him though, as Frederick Vasseur has admitted that he was concerned for the Finns' power unit during the race, following the control electronic issues for Antonio Giovinazzi in qualifying. Vasseur added that he was happy with the car's pace once again and believed Raikkonen could have fought Perez and Ricciardo had he not picked up damage to the front of the car 10 laps from the end. And as touched on there, Giovinazzi was compromised during qualifying due to those reliability issues, and when talking about his weekend, the Italian stated, "It was a difficult weekend overall. We started the race from the back of the grid and went with a bit of a different strategy to try and gain some positions. It didn't work so well in the end." So once again, frustrating for Giovinazzi, but there are some encouraging signs for Alfa ahead of the rest of this season. It was a poor day for Haas. Both drivers started in the top 10, of course. However, the race pace just wasn't there once again. And that's something that Kevin Magnussen did fear after qualifying on Saturday. The Dane said that he doesn't understand why the car appears to be struggling on a Sunday, and added that he is finding it frustrating because, quote, "We see we've got a good car that can qualify well, then we can't convert that into race pace." Despite the apparent lack of pace, Romain Grosjean narrowly missed out on taking the final point as he was held off by Alex Albon, and Grosjean said that he feels that the blue flags towards the end of the race cost him, and without them would have been able to take 10th place. As I covered earlier, McLaren's race was compromised in that first lap incident with Daniil Kvyat, and Carlos Sainz reckons that without that incident he could have challenged for the points because he was able to manage the tyres well and his car had solid race pace. Sainz, who, let's face it, really cannot catch a break at the moment, said that he will keep focusing on the positives because, quote, "things in the end will turn around." Lando Norris was forced to retire late on as he was never able to recover due to the damage on his car. Just like his teammate though, he is focusing on the positives for the team, and based on Sainz's pace believes that the, quote, "top 3 teams aside, he looked to be the best of everyone else." And finally, down at Williams, George Russell said after qualifying that he believed the team had made some progress, and that appeared to be the case in the race as well, with the Brit saying that the pace was better than expected and was pleased to see the team managing to stay with the pack early on in the Grand Prix. He did add though that he was struggling with the tyres in the middle stint and described the race as lonely. As for his teammate though, he wasn't happy, admitting that the most exciting part of his race was when he spun on the formation lap trying to get some heat into the tyres. He was in good company though, as Max Verstappen also spun on his way to the grid. And just to finish this part off, Kubica added that he has, quote, "no race pace against my teammate," and went on to blame different factors rather than just the car. Now, Alexander Albon was awarded the Driver of the Day title on the official fan vote, and quite frankly, I have to agree, absolutely my Driver of the Day. He started from the pit lane following his crash in FP3, and as you saw earlier, made his way all the way up to 10th place. Now, of course, yes, he was helped by a few retirements, but he also pulled off some exciting overtaking, and on top of that made the one-stop strategy work with some very good tyre management and fought off Romain Grosjean towards the end of the race to snatch that final point. All in all, a fantastic drive, which you can actually watch, by the way, over on the official Formula 1 YouTube channel. There's a video there of all his overtakes. It was just a day where he was able to demonstrate some really good skill and some really good maturity, as well as patience, and absolutely thoroughly deserves all the credit he is getting. There are absolutely others who deserve a mention as well. Lewis Hamilton, as I said earlier, controlled and dominated the Grand Prix. Sergio Perez was excellent, especially on that opening lap. And Kimi Raikkonen made his way up from 13th to 9th. No, it wasn't a particularly good Grand Prix, but there were some very good performances out there. Before I disappear then, let's have a quick look at the championship table, starting with the drivers. And Lewis Hamilton has moved to the top of that table on 68 points, with teammate Valtteri Bottas now 6 behind on 62. Max Verstappen remains in third on 39 points, with Sebastian Vettel in fourth and Charles Leclerc fifth. Pierre Gasly has made his way up to 6th place following the result in China. He's now on 13 points. Kimi Raikkonen in 7th is on 12. Really good start to the season from the Finn. Lando Norris is 8th for McLaren with 8 points, and 8 points as well for Kevin Magnussen in 9th, with Nico Hülkenberg rounding out that top 10 on 6 points. In the Constructors' Championship, Mercedes looking quite frankly comfortable at the moment, 130 points on the board already, with Ferrari in 2nd on 73 and Red Bull 3rd on 52. Daniel Ricciardo's result in China moves Renault to 4th place, but they are tied on points with Alfa Romeo in 5th, that's 12 points apiece. Also tied on points are Haas and McLaren on 8, Racing Points have 7, Toro Rosso 4 and Williams are yet to score anything. That is it then for the Chinese Grand Prix debrief, and in the comments section down below let me know your thoughts on the race, your take on Ferrari's team orders, and also who was your driver of the day. As I said earlier, there were a few standout performers. Now, I will be back later in the week with more content as ever, but in the meantime, you can follow me over on social media. The links to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course to Discord are all in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.